Hey guys, so have you ever wanted to know what it's like to actually travel the world and do your job you love? Well, coming up, we're going to interview one person that is absolutely going to be one of the best in their chosen profession and has been lucky enough to spend enough time with the best people in the world in that chosen profession. So stick around, guys, and check it out.
With the biceps and the elbows behind the ears. So it looks like this. You can see from the side view where that individual.
Hi, Abby. I'd like to welcome you to our interview today. Thanks for catching up. I know it's been a while, and I did promise to do this earlier, a lot earlier. Finally got around to it. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me, and I'm excited we're sitting down and chat.
Yeah, cool. So what we might start with is just you know, everyone knows you from Swim Like a Fish, and you've got a massive Instagram following that's only just getting bigger and bigger, and you're traveling all the time through your swim clinics. But where did it all start? How did you actually start swimming when you were a kid?
Yeah, so I actually started swimming because my brother, he's 4 years older than me, was on the swim team, and I pretty much wanted to emulate everything he was doing. So when he started going to swim practice when he was 8, I was 4. I just told my mom, was like, well, if he gets to go, why don't I get to go? And a little reluctant at first. My mom wasn't quite sure if a 4-year-old should be on a competitive swim team, but she wanted to give me the choice, which I think is actually a really great parenting skill. So I joined a swim team for about 2 weeks, and I told her I didn't really like swimming that much, and she let me quit. And then I restarted again when I was 5, and pretty much I've been swimming ever since. I'm 29, so my career's been 24 years long, and I feel like it's just going to keep going.
Oh, cool. So on that, what are your thoughts about parents and little kids that swim? Our sport has a bit of history of parents pushing kids at quite a young age. What do
Mhm.
you think is a good idea for parents that might be watching this to say, oh, is there a definite time as to when parents should really start to push their kids?
Yeah, well, I think what's was pretty interesting to me is when I was over in Australia last fall, the difference between like a coastal country versus a country that has, inland states. And so, like most people in Australia, I feel like learn to swim because it's a life skill and it's a big part of your guys' environment and just how you grow up. You're in the ocean and whatnot. And people in the US are not the same way. So we have a much larger population here just because the country's larger, but the reality is we still have like the same amount of percentage wise of swimmers. So for me, I'm a big proponent of if you're younger, you should teach your kids how to swim. That's the first step. It's really water safety is important. And then from there, as far as the competitive side is concerned, like as I was saying with my mom, I felt like it was really a great thing that she let me make the decision. And I was kind of the unique kid where if I do something, my personality is still the same way. I'm 100% into it. So she kind of had to like pull me back sometimes from things.
Yeah.
Versus you have parents now that are really pushing children. And I would say there's no like special secret. There's no like age requirement or like they got to be 13 before you really kind of like help them. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to be a choice, and it's got to be a choice by the kid because at the end of the day, it's their swimming career. Like the parents are facilitators, they're mentors, they're emotional support. But I think it's really important to allow your kids to kind of go through the waves and the ups and downs of swimming and just decide for themselves if it's something they want to pursue. Swimming is
Yeah.
not an easy sport. It is a hard sport. It is very honest.
It is. It's very brutal, and I mean, I've expressed my opinions um, on these sorts of things as well. I'm starting the impression that the kids under the age of 13 shouldn't really compete in high performance
Mm.
meets. I think regional local meets is enough. I think just focusing on their technique and fitness is plenty. But that's probably a conversation for another day. So growing up, went through the swim team and made it to high school, and in the high school team, all that sort of stuff, and then big breakthrough, or what happened after high school?
Yeah, so I grew up like a multi-sport athlete. So I played a bunch of sports along with swimming, and it actually wasn't until midway through high school that my club coach here sat me down and was kind of like, where are we focusing? What are we doing? Are you wanting to swim in college? And my sister swam in college. She's actually older than my brother. So I kind of had like a vague idea that I thought it would be awesome, but I never really knew if I had the opportunity to. And basically, right after I decided to give up, I was playing volleyball at the time. Um, Volleyball, I went all in on swimming, and things started happening, and my time started getting faster, and coaches started looking at me, and it was really a unique opportunity. And I have to credit a lot of my club coach from Louisville for getting me to that like next level. I'm not really sure if where I was before would have gotten me there because we were living in a completely different state. But every coach along the way was a part of the reason how I ended up swimming at the University of Georgia. So I have to thank all of them.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing with the US swimming scene is the college progression from high school. In Australia, we're not lucky enough to have that yet. To
Hmm.
actually get a scholarship for a university, as far as swimming goes, you've pretty much got to be on the Olympic team.
Yeah.
You don't have that intervarsity competition like you guys do. I think it's something we need to slowly develop, but you know, it really does keep swimmers in the sport longer.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? That it just keeps people going for that 5 or 6 years more that can actually propel them to a higher standard.
100%. I do think that college swimming actually extends a lot of people's careers. And what we were dealing with when I graduated like 7 years ago is you were still getting people postgraduate training, but that's when they were having the issues of deciding like, should I continue the sport or not? So you got out of college. There isn't really a lot of money in professional swimming, but you have a lot of great swimmers. And people were wondering, well, how long do I do this? Do I need to get a job? Do I need to do that? This, that, and the other. And I feel like in Australia, it just happens at a way earlier age because kids are having to decide or fund themselves through school, and that's really hard to do. So it is a unique opportunity, and college swimming is something that I totally, I don't know if I really understood how nice it was until I went through it and had that opportunity. Because when you're 18, I don't think you necessarily always understand like what is happening. Things are happening, and you just keep working hard and whatnot. But looking back on it, yeah, I would totally always swim in college. I'm a huge proponent of that.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, it'd be great to see that happen one day here, but it might be a little bit of a ways off. But anyway, so now you've worked with other great coaches like Gary Hall Senior at the race club. Is that right?
Yep, yep. So I
Tell me
kind
a bit
of,
about that. Like most
yeah.
Australians know Gary Hall Jr.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, from his quote about the Australian relay team and that they were going to smash them like old guitars.
Yeah.
Um, since then, Australia really doesn't know much about Gary Hall Jr. or Senior. So, what was it like working with them?
Yeah, so the race club was a unique opportunity for me. Once I stopped swimming, I started coaching, and I basically worked in the high performance department at USA Swimming, doing biomechanics type research, and I was looking into stroke technique, which is really what birthed me getting to where I am now. It's what made me really realize that I love swimming stroke technique. Um, so I just finished coaching at Nashville Aquatic Club. And I was looking for a different situation that could really allow me to learn that was outside the box. And the race club always has been very outside the box. Like they were the first really American postgraduate training program that existed in the early 2000s. And it was in the Florida Keys. And so I ended up talking to Gary, got the job. I went down there and worked with him. And I did. I learned a lot. Their mission and what they're doing has changed over the years. From being that postgraduate training group to stroke technique and camps and clinics and more like online education. But it was perfect for me to get in there, learn about how to work online, and then also learn about how they view the sport because it's a very specific scientific way and philosophy on swimming. So it was awesome. And Gary Hall Sr. is the one who runs it. Gary Hall Jr. Is involved. He's probably a little bit more like an ambassador on the side. But yeah, I mean, you can't not know of Gary Hall Jr. if you're a swimming fan. So yeah, it was fun for me. I mean, I knew of him growing up and got to meet them, and I'm pretty close to the whole family. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
It's it's really interesting when you meet one of your idols, especially in swimming, because it's just a very awkward experience. I mean, I've met some of my Olympic idols over the years, and it just throws you completely out of whack to sort of think that you watch these people compete on the world stage, and now you're getting actually to talk to them and spend time with them face to face. I
Yeah,
think it's a
yeah,
really good learning experience. So, but just so you know as well, I think Michael Klim, Gary Hall Jr., and Brett Hawke are all doing the Fitter Faster clinic tour
yeah.
at the minute over in I think it's Los Angeles, I think. So
Mhm.
it's really good to see Gary back in the sport and coaching and all that sort of stuff. So, but
Yeah.
after that, Ritter Sports, is that right?
Yeah, so I went from the race club and then partnered with Ritter. So I basically I worked at USA Swimming, I worked at Nashville Aquatic Club, I worked at the race club, and I felt like I had all these people telling me kind of what they thought of swimming, how they thought swimming worked, and it was great. I have great mentors, people that really taught me a lot, and I kind of felt like it was time for me to go forge my own path because I had my own thought processes on how things worked and why they worked. And so Chris Ritter called me and asked me if I basically wanted to bring swimming stroke technique to Ritter Sports Performance because it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, this sounds like a pretty good idea. I've been working half online with the race club, so why not morph this into an entirely like online um, company? And I did. I worked for Ritter for 3 years, and I learned a lot. I connected with people all around the world like you, which is really
Yep.
awesome. And it's allowed me a lot of different opportunities and just really, it's crazy. The swimming world is so small in the U.S. It's like so like kind of like circular and just everybody knows everybody, but then even when you expand it to like the entire world, it actually still is just
Still
this
quite
little
small. Yeah.
community. Yeah, it's crazy. So I absolutely love that part of the swimming world, and it makes me feel very at ease and at home.
It is, and there's always somebody that knows somebody that you know as well that I've found in the swimming world. Like, um,
Mm,
for example, I just had a guy rock up to the pool when I was coaching an adult squad, and turns out he was in Queensland. He was, Jeff Hugel's coach for a while, and
mm.
he actually swam over for Mark Schubert,
Okay.
and it was just really bizarre because here comes in this guy that who's now in his late 50s, early 60s,
Mm.
and he's talking about people that are still relative today, which is really interesting. And it's such a small group. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
swim like a fish.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
So
tell us all about it.
yeah, so Swim Like a Fish is like my own everything, which is really exciting. I popped off from Ritter at the beginning of May, and it's been something that I've been thinking about doing for a while, kind of pre-planning it. I wanted to solely focus on stroke technique. That's always been my jam. That's what I wanted to do. And it's been this natural progression where, I kind of branded myself as a coach, but then my last name's Fish. And so it kind of seemed like this could be something that would make logical sense,
Yep.
and I started it, and yeah, it's going really well. It's been very well received, and I love it. It's crazy to be able to like wear a T-shirt with your own logo on it. Like, who would have thought? That's a real
Yeah.
thing.
Yep. So what's it all about? So are you traveling all over the US doing these clinics and camps, or is it, are you
Yeah.
doing like one-on-one coaching as well as online coaching, or what's the business model, I suppose you could say?
Yeah, so the business model is essentially it includes online coaching. So similar to what I was doing with Ritter, if you want to get video analysis, you can do that. If you want me to kind of coach you from afar, you can do that. I also have a membership site. It's called the School of Fish, and it's basically takes a person, coach or swimmer through the learning curve of different styles of swimming stroke technique. You're actually one of the first people I've told about it because it's not
Cool.
officially launched yet. But what's really cool about it is you learn an aspect of swimming stroke technique, and then you learn basically the fundamental purpose of it, and then you learn how to identify it, and you learn how you'd actually do it, and then what you would do to implement it. So it takes you through the stages of actually making a change, which the whole point of it would be able to make a sustainable change for swimmers so they are faster. So that's kind of like the basis of Swim Like a Fish. And then, yeah, the traveling component is me helping people all over the world with changes in their stroke technique in person. And so that will be US based, but obviously I'll be flying here, there, and everywhere if called out. So yeah, it's cool. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, it sounds really, really good. So, what are your thoughts on actually online coaching? Do you think the world's now ready for it? I know it's a thing that's been tried before a few times,
Hmm.
and it never really seems to get off the ground too well from what I've seen. But I think with the technology getting better and better these days, I think it's really time for it to really start taking off. I think if people can now, video record themselves, nearly everyone's got a waterproof camera on their phone.
Yeah.
Do you think we're ready for it?
Yeah, honestly, I do. I do think that swimming's a little bit unique, that it requires so much training that necessarily like trying to train at a high performance level with someone who's not with you every day may not necessarily be the best equation for success. But there is something to be said for having a different set of eyes on you and getting different inputs from different coaches when you're in that high performance environment. So the reason I like what I do is I'm not necessarily writing training plans and trying to coach swimmers, 6 out of 7 days a week from behind my computer screen. I really like to hone in on the stroke technique component, check in on people every once in a while, and I'm like the subset coach. So I'm like a coach that helps them, gives them some feedback. It might be similar to what their coach is saying, or maybe just said in a different way. But there's definitely benefits to the online coaching. And what I think is even better is it allows people who are maybe in not the best location, like, you can't really control where your parents live, but it allows you to get coaching from some of the best people in the world. And I think that that is a huge benefit that's often overlooked. So for me, it's a matter of elevating the sport to the next level. Like, I want to help everybody get faster. And the way you do that is you got to reach different people that are all over the place and give them the same opportunities as someone who was placed in a good situation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think part of being a coach is you want to help. You want to help everybody. It's just trying to get that communication set up. I mean, the road you're going down, I think is fantastic. I think it's going to work out quite well for you. Um,
Mm.
so, in saying that, what sort of software do you think is the best software? Oh, actually, don't give away too many trade secrets. But do you think people can just send through a video on their iPhone, and then you send it back, or do you think it really needs a lot more than that? Like, it's I suppose for people that want to try and join school like a fish, a school of fish, and get your help. What's the
Hmm.
best video format to send in? Like, did you just want something with them swimming on the water, or do you reckon under the water, or are you happy with whatever? Like, and how does that work with what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the better video quality, the more in advanced advice, like the better advice I can give, if it's a better video quality. So, like, of course, above and below water would be ideal. Can everyone do that? Not necessarily. If you're a parent, are you sitting in the stands? Does that mean you're like 40 stands away from the pool? And is there someone stand up in the middle of the race? Like, there's always these factors. But at the end of the day, as long as you can physically see the swimmer in the video, you're close to the swimmer, and you can see aspects of the race happening, there's definitely feedback that can be given. So I try to work with really whatever is possible, and obviously if it's something that I feel like people are not going to get value from, I'm not obviously going to take it and say, hey, I'm okay with doing this analysis, because at the end of the day, it's a business and I am running a business and it needs to be profitable, but I want what I do to actually help people and benefit people and give good value. So I'd rather just say no thanks or figure out something else versus give someone something that I feel like isn't really going to help them.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's I think that's what everyone wants. They want, especially I just find with coaches in particular, I must admit 80% of the coaches in Australia will offer their services for free,
Mhm.
to other coaches. And everyone just wants that bit of value, they want to feel like they've gotten something for their money. Um,
Mhm.
so with like you came over to Australia last year and you were fortunate enough to meet Michael Bowl and a few others.
Mhm.
What did you think of that? Was that a good learning curve for you as well? Like the experience? I mean, I'm a big fan of Michael Bowl, but I've never met him yet. So
Yeah, it was awesome. He reminded me a lot of my coach in college, Jack Bowerly. He was very open, welcoming, wanted to show me around. He sat down and talked with me for 10 minutes and just really went through like his philosophy and why he does what he does and how he's been so successful. And so for a young coach who is a female, that's a big deal to me, is just really feel like I can walk on deck and just have a conversation, especially with these coaches that have been there, they've done it, they've like quote unquote made it. Because it really proves to me that they're wanting the sport to continue to progress even beyond their coaching stints. So for me, especially my mom, I remember was asking me when I was in Australia, she was, are you homesick? Like, have you thought about home? Because I had been there for about 2 months, and I was like, honestly, no. Like, everywhere I go, I'm on a pool deck, and in that pool deck, someone I know in the pool deck knows someone else. And so it's just like I'm essentially at home, just like millions of miles away from my actual home. So it was a phenomenal experience, and I learned a lot because I visited a ton of different teams. So like from your guys' age group program to your high performance to like your postgraduate, I would consider postgraduate elite training programs to the different like I went to the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Like it was all over the place, and there was all these different coaches with different philosophies, which is similar to the U.S. But yeah, I was talking to so-and-so about like the aperture of someone's energy system versus this guy was saying, you know, I can just read energy systems off of the, you know, how red the kids' faces are. I mean, it was phenomenal. I had a great time.
Oh, good. No, that's good. So with the World Champs coming up,
Mm-hmm.
what are your thoughts on the US team and how they're going to go compared to the Aussie team?
I think the U.S. is kind of in a unique situation right now. I think for a while there, we had Michael and all these guys that were just pretty much always guarantees. And it was kind of easy. Like we've had depth, like there's good depth in the U.S. For us to just know that we were going to do well. But now kind of those guys are starting to retire, and we have a new wave of swimmers. And a lot of them are still really good. Like they might win. They could win gold, silver, bronze, whatever. But it's the young guns that are kind of taking over. And it's pretty exciting to sit back and see, like there's like Allison Schmidt is one of my best friends, and she's still swimming, and she's the captain for I think the women's side or maybe the combined team. So she's kind of mentoring these younger ones at some point that, you know, she was that. So I do think the U.S. in a way is still a little bit young, but there's a lot of talent to be pulled from. So yeah, I feel like the U.S. always figures out how to do well, and so I feel like it'll be a good meet.
Yeah, I must admit the US team coming off the back of Phelps, you know, provided you've got that succession of young guns, as you said, coming through, I think you're always going to have a good program to work with. We had the same thing with Ian Thorpe for a while there. You know, he just went through and cleaned up everything, and then we had to still bring young guns through afterwards, and you know that's where we've got, you know, Mac Horton and Kyle Chalmers and all those guys now coming through. The one thing that concerns me from Australian swimming, and you've seen a little bit of it, but we always seem to do well in the Commonwealth Games, and our media in particular really talks us up. Then we'll go to Worlds or we'll go to the Olympics and, you know, won't perform as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that, you know, should we be emphasising as much on the Com Games from an outsider's perspective, or should we just worry about, you know, sending a couple of swimmers with the ISL coming up too, but I'll get to that. Should we be sending them in the ISL, or should we be, you know, just mainly focusing on Worlds and our own Olympic, sort of our big dreams and hopes?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really know. I would say what I learned when I was in Australia is that Australian swimming has totally changed where they're funneling money and what clubs are getting money and why. And I do think that the way that they were doing it before with Canberra being like a really big base to what is happening now has kind of changed the reality of how many swimmers you guys have coming through, and also like, because it's kind of like big cities are where there's a lot of funding, but if you don't live in a big city, then it's kind of like, well, what do you do? So I think there is pros and cons to both models, and I can't really speak to which model might be better. But I would say that, like, as far as a country is concerned, like the Commonwealth Games are something that you guys take a lot of pride in. So I don't know if you necessarily want to like like funnel that a different way. But at the end of the day, you know, the Olympics is what everyone considers the biggest stage. So
Yeah.
you're kind of ranked on how well you do at the Olympics.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting to note, like, I mean, the US, they have their nationals and they have worlds, and they're sort of, you know, and the Olympics, and they focus on that. And
Mhm.
it's just interesting to see the two systems, whether Australia needs to go, well, hang on a second, com games are great, but maybe we don't need to focus on that as much.
Mhm.
Um, I suppose it's one thing for the Australian Swimming Australia to talk about. But as I mentioned before and alluded to, the ISL, it's
Mhm.
looking like a pretty good thing from where I'm sitting. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I have a bunch of friends that are like just recently retired, and some of them are still in it. So I think it's going to be interesting as far as like the shootout perspective is concerned. You don't really know who's going to make it and being put on teams. Obviously, we both talked about like how to make people's careers longer, and I think the ISL is a good solution to that. It allows people to continue to swim, to make some money. It just naturally adds to that progression of, okay, now you're out of college, what could be the next logical step? And so I do think it fits a need. I think it's going to take a little bit to figure out how that need is actually going to be 100% met. But I'm glad to see that they're, you know, trying to take the sport into the next level.
Yeah, I must admit, we had a similar sort of thing with cricket many years ago, wherein, you know, the India came in and we created this whole new league of cricket and everything like that. And it seems to be the same way the ISL is going. So, you know, we have different swimmers from all over the world competing on the same teams that they might normally be competing with. So, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing I find about the International Swimming League is that, you know, even though we can have Kate Campbell based in Australia, she can be in the same team as, you know, Sarah Stroh's from the other side of the world, you know, or Adam Peaty might be, you know, in the same team as Caleb Dressel, and I
Yeah.
think that's going to add to it. There are no sort of regional boundaries, so to speak.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Actually, it should be really good. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping somebody in Australia picks up broadcasting rights.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's going to be fun. I mean, I think there for the U.S. specifically, the year after the Olympics always happen, we see a blip in registrations for USA Swimming. So there's always just more
Yep.
participants after the Olympic year, and so I'm interested in seeing as far as like if the ISL does well, they're broadcasting. Do people just in general? Is it just kind of like a slow creep and we end up just getting more and more people involved in the sport? Because at the end of the day, like I feel like that's kind of what everybody wants.
Yep. I think it can open up a lot of pathways for not just swimmers, but administrators and coaches as well. I think it can really, if it's done right, and it looks like they're doing it that way so far,
Mhm.
I think the International Swim League can actually take swimming to the next level. I think it will really help other countries to build a foundation like the USA has in their collegiate sports.
Mhm.
Um, but it'll be interesting to sit back and watch.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm excited.
So what's planned for the future? What's keep working away at Swim Like a Fish and School of Fish, and what else have we got on the boil?
Yeah, so I am still building out the website. The website launch should be happening next week, so hopefully the video will be like coinciding with all
Yep.
this. And yeah, so building out that, making sure I'm continuing to make connections. For me, personal growth is a big deal. So just because I feel like, you know, I've learned a lot, I still have plenty to learn. I'm still very young, so I want to make sure that I'm continuing to connect with coaches and staying on top of those different technique trends and having conversations that allows me to just make sure that I'm continuing to grow. I have some couple kind of partnerships that are in the mix. None of them I can really announce right now, but there's a couple companies that I'm probably going to start working with and for. So you'll see
Just
more of me.
noticing the just noticing the logo. Is that you're not letting the cat out of the bag there, are you?
You know, that might be part of it, but not all of it. Yeah, so I mean, it's for me, it's still just it like swim like a fish is going to be my main focus, and then anything else I can add to it is just a super plus. So I'm hoping to take it more on a global scale. Like I know the internet can connect me with people, but I want to get on the ground in other areas and work with other federations. So that's a big goal of mine is, you know, how do I get over to France? How do I work with the French and the British? And I've been to Australia, but I would love to come back and just really make this as big and as bad as possible.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, we'd definitely love to have you out here one day. It'd be awesome. Um, I live 3 hours from Sydney, but I can drive down there and back in a day, so that's not a problem. Happy to go to something you've got on for sure. Even happy to organise something regionally for you.
Mm.
Just one more thing I want to sort of touch base on. Regional swimming in the US. So how, I suppose you've got the larger network, but how do kids go over there progressing from school to high school, and is there a big dropout rate? Do they have any major factors that sort of affect them from not progressing through, or is it
Mhm.
just a smooth ride the whole way?
I do think that there's like an array of different factors. I would say that there's a pretty big gap between like age group programs, which is kind of like until someone becomes a teenager, into like a high school program. Especially as we alluded to at the beginning of this call, like parents putting a lot of pressure on kids at an early age is, causing more kids to drop out of the sport at an earlier like start than they probably would if they continued and didn't have as much pressure on their backs. So it isn't necessarily always a smooth ride. I do feel like we have large swim programs. We have summer league programs, which are like competitive, but not necessarily, competitive swimming driven, that help get kids into the sport. And the age group portion of it is still pretty fun. And I would say that from a regional perspective, that's where you have, we call them zones and different meets that are like basically taking portions of the U.S. and putting kids together. And that's really like your first exposure to swimming outside of your own little region. And we do a good job with that. But as far as getting people to commit to doubles, commit to, weights and morning practices and really saying like, this is the sport I want to do, that's a big decision. And it's not one to take lightly. And I do think that it sometimes does scare kids off. And so it's USA Swimming initiated this movement this past year for butterfly specifically. It's called the USA Swimming Butterfly Revolution. And what they're trying to do is take away the negative connotation that is basically given to butterfly to kids at a young age, because no one wants to swim it because everyone thinks it's the hard stroke. It's, like it's just difficult. And so it's, as coaches, how do we present these things to swimmers? Like, how do we present the sport in a way that it's a positive thing so people see the benefits of continuing through, even though it's not necessarily always fun?
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I must admit. Most kids aren't a big fan of butterfly. If you tell someone that they have to race a 200-meter fly, I think they'd rather go to the car park and beat their head against the wall so they couldn't swim it. To be honest, if you can do 200 fly, you're considered an Ironman of swimming. So it's and I
I
mean,
was a butterflyer. That was my bread and butter.
awesome. So
Yeah.
very good. All right. Well, I think we've pretty much covered it all.
Yeah.
Really like to thank you for your time. I hope Swim Like a Fish goes well, and look forward to the upcoming announcements. And really hoping to get you back over here one day, and you can help out a lot of the kids and a lot of the swimmers in. I've got to say New South Wales, because it's a bit of a state of origin thing, as you might have heard, New South Wales and Queensland. So, obviously, being from New South Wales, I want New South Wales to, spearhead the whole thing. At the minute, it's pretty hard with Queensland being the way they are. It's perfect weather. They've got the schools, they've got the talent, they've got everything up there. But hopefully, New South Wales will come back one day.
Yeah.
But thank you very much again for your time. I
Yeah,
appreciate it, and look forward to chatting again to you soon.
sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so that was our interview with Abbie. So as you can tell, great girl, got a lot of things in the pipeline. She's going to do a great thing with swimming, especially over in the US. Look, as I said, guys, drop us a like, give us a comment if you know Abbie as well. If you think the interview was good, all that sort of stuff. She's a lot better with interviews than I am. I'm still learning, but look, it was a great experience to talk to her, and can't wait to do it again in a couple of months' time, find out where she's at and what she's up to. So please, click like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the swimming stuff that we're going to put out in the next couple of months, and hopefully you'll like it all. All right, guys, have a great day. See ya.